Welcome to Nowhere. This is your host, Keegan Otwell. So I'm going to give a little bit of an intro here and talk about the podcast a little bit. On this episode of Nowhere, I interviewed Donnie, someone from my local community who has been experiencing homelessness for the last 6 years or so. I think hearing his story, his full story, is incredibly important as he's a reflection of so many other Americans who have struggled through the same series of setbacks. His life was dedicated to his work. He was a union electrician foreman who was cleared to oversee up to 300 other workers. He got hurt, and it changed everything. Because, among other things, he's also a victim of Purdue Pharma and their drug oxycontin and their lobbying of the medical industry to change how pain was treated across America. Because he went most of his life without any issues with addiction. You know, his life was all about work, really. And then after 2 injuries, actually, the second one put him out of work for good. Yeah, he was on this drug. He didn't really know anything about it. After years on it and a growing tolerance to it, the inevitable eventually happened. Yeah, he ended up addicted to heroin. We live in a new reality after the recent U.S. election, and I want to strive to share voices of people that otherwise go unheard. You know, I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I really think sharing people's personal histories is an antidote to hate and fear. You know, I'm still not making an effort to monetize any of this. I don't really know how or when that would happen. But if you really want to help the podcast right now, just subscribing on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Cast, YouTube, whatever, and reviewing it, and then sharing these episodes with your friends would help a lot. Also, I've been having a series of dental work done. My mouth keeps changing, so if I sound weird, that's why. Yeah, so these interviews took place over a couple months at least. I had a lot of off-the-record conversations with Donnie and got to know him before recording him, so that is to say that you're going to hear some background noise of the city. And just before we go into the first interview here, I will put a content warning here. Addiction will be mentioned. There will also be mentions of suicide and childhood trauma. With that, we'll get into the first interview here. It's split up into different interviews that took place over a couple months or so. I will leave you to it, and thank you for listening and enjoy the podcast. Alright, so Don Treadway, you're from Jacksonville.
Yeah, I was born and raised in Jacksonville until I was in the 5th grade. And moved to Greene County, Illinois, Whitehall.
When did you start working for the electrician union?
That was in 99. I worked 23 years there. I was a lineman and worked through telecommunications side. They run 4 books. They run electric and gas, tree work, telephone, and cable TV through
Where
the hall.
were you doing all of that around?
Just all over the state.
Yeah,
everywhere. Whatever local you was in, you had to go through that hall.
You have kids and stuff, right?
Yeah, I have 3 daughters and a son.
Is that with your ex-wife?
Yes.
So when did you get injured?
Oh, Lord, I don't remember the exact year, but I've been on disability now for over 15 years now.
Were you doing union work when you got injured?
Yes, yeah. I got smashed with a log. I was a foreman on a clear-out crew. It was a 21 duct fiber system put in by the guy that used to own Southern Pacific Railroad, and him and Bill Gates got together. The Southern Pacific owner sold to UP, which currently owns the line now, and so along the right-of-way rights that he had there is where the fiber system was laid.
Like fiber optics?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I was actually a working foreman. You know, I ran.
Okay.
Actually, there's very few guys left out of the hall that even holds a card that says you're it's called the supervising foreman.
Okay. Yeah.
And under that card, I could be the foreman on the job to up to 300 guys. But I was the foreman on the tear-out crew. I ran a Vermeer J2000 knuckle boom chipper and pulled it with a D9 cat. and I saw I carried up.
So were you guys like taking down trees and chipping
Yeah,
and stuff?
yeah. It looked like a golf course when you come down through there. I mean, the right of way was completely clear. There was nothing in the way.
Damn.
I carried a 088 steel chainsaw, which is one of the biggest ones they make. The 4-foot bar.
Is that one of those ones that's like on the machine, or
No,
you hold it?
it's handheld.
Okay,
and carried. Yeah, it's a 4-foot bar on it. Like I say, I'd pack the saw up to a half a mile ahead of me, or a mile, and cut everything in the way with it. And I did this walking all the way from Indianapolis, Indiana, to Chicago, and Chicago to Kansas City, Kansas. Yeah, I'd walk with that, and then I'd saw everything down.
So
yeah, it was a 3-year job. 3-year job.
Yeah.
And I'd bring the chipper up. Of course, you have to, when you cut the tree down, you'd have to cripple all the limbs.
Yeah.
So you pick it up the knuckle boom and set it in the chipper and eat a whole tree.
The day you got injured, I mean, was there anything different going on that day? Just the usual day at work?
Just the usual day. We got a guy on our crew that he'd been through every crew out there, and nobody wanted him on the job. You know, he's an ex-vet, and had been a tunnel rat in the service. He'd done 2 tours.
In Vietnam?
In Vietnam. Nobody wanted him. He was he was rough. You know, he was mentally stressed, you know, from being in the war and stuff. And he was a guy out there, you know, he's raising 4 kids on his own. His wife had left him, and
dealing with like undiagnosed PTSD and shit.
Yeah, absolutely. And I felt really bad for the guy. Plus, my whole life, I can't remember a time that I didn't go with my grandma on Veterans Day, get flags, put them on the service members' grave. And I felt bad for the guy. And everybody has to work. I don't care what your mental state is. If you don't have an income, you have to work. So
right.
I wasn't about to send the guy home or fire him. So I let him work on my crew. And I'd been stopped by a safety guy. He told me to shut my machine down and pick up some hedge balls because it was a trip hazard around the machine. So I did. And I was shoveling them up with a corn scoop, and about that time, I was down to like the last shovel full of hedge balls. They look like a green, oversized grapefruit that hangs on the trees. And I started to raise up to throw it in there. About that time, he leans into my machine, and there's a cage that goes around that protects the controllers. And it was kind of just as much my fault as it was his. Trying to hurry, the RPMs were still up on the machine, drum was still turning, and he leans into my machine. He engaged the rollers, and at the same time, the forward handle that had the grapple, 1.5 feet, 2 foot of the tree was still on the end of the chipper. Well, when he hit that, engaged the rollers, it also pushed that arm forward, and it shoved the tree in there. And when it did at an angle, them rollers turned at the same RPMs and same direction. So when he shoved that at an angle in there, it threw it sideways to take it straight. And that's the time I was raising up. It hit me in the low back and the tailbone, and it was a huge tree. I mean, really, really huge. It was over 3 foot wide, and it knocked me down a 40-foot embankment on the railroad right away. I went down on my chest and ate a bunch of cinder on the way down. The only thing that happened is, they asked me if I needed to go to the hospital at the time, which I didn't feel I needed to. Had a little bit of a headache and a low back ache, but, I figured that just come with what had just happened. It wasn't nothing real bad that I couldn't take, First aid kits there, and there was aspirin in there and Tylenols and stuff. And I took some of those and sat down for about a half hour and went ahead and continued back to work. There was only a couple hours left of work, and the next morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, I tried to get out of bed, and I had to have my ex-wife at the time now help me out of bed, and as I couldn't feel my legs at all, all I felt was a burning down my legs, and she pulled the covers back and turned the light on, and my legs were completely black. There was no part of my legs, my feet, my toes were black, but what had happened is it had ruptured from my tailbone to my L5, 6, 7 vertebrae in my low back. The way the tree hit me and the way I was standing, it ruptured from the front to the back because it hit me from behind and shoved my spine forward. When my disc ruptured, they went into my spinal canal. So they had to cut me from my navel to my pubic bone, going from the front, and that disc actually went into the canal that holds the fluid around your spinal cord.
Yeah. And
fragmented in there. I have discs to this day still floating around my spinal canal. I'm not supposed to.
So is that why, did you just have a bunch of internal bleeding and it just fucking
my spinal area,
your body?
Yeah. I was placed upside down for like 45 days at a inverted.
Try to fucking drain the spread it throughout your body. And
so I had started to get a spinal infection. It come on really quick too, within 7 or 8 days of me having an accident. I couldn't stand it being light. I had the worst headaches, vomiting, nausea. I mean, it was horrible. I was like that for 45 days.
It's got to be pretty close to having like a brain infection.
Yeah. That's what would have happened if they hadn't. It was a pretty bad deal. I mean, it's.
So were you like at jobs? I've never worked a job like that, but they always tell me worked in kitchens, and they're like, if you have an injury, you have to write everything down and report it right away.
Yeah.
Did that happen with your injury?
No. They gave me. Well, I mean, I had to report it right away. You got up to 45 days in the state of Illinois to record an injury. That's the law of the state, but the company policies are quite different than what the state law says.
Really?
So yeah, I reported it.
I'm sure it was obvious to everyone that you got injured on the job.
Oh yes, absolutely. I mean, Kiewit, they were the safety inspectors, and they're the ones that laid down what laws we had to follow as far as safety issues and so on. Yeah, I reported it right away. And of course, the Kiewit operator, their guy, had to also. But the issue was they hire basically a nursing facilitator to go to your appointments with you. The insurance company does.
Okay.
And they're supposed to be there for you to make sure you get the care you're getting, and so that your doctors and you don't get together and say, well, this is wrong when it's not. Anything that a doctor wants to do to you, they report it and they get it approved. Whether they get it approved or not depends upon. And it took them forever and ever to get anything approved. I mean, they like to prolong things, and all it did was it made things worse for me. Had everything been approved that should have been approved when I needed it, in my doctor's advice, I would probably be in a whole lot better shape, and because of them, I mean.
Because right now you're just on regular disability, right?
Yeah.
Did you ever get any kind of workers' comp?
Yeah, I got I was a $120,000 settlement, and that was it.
But then you're out of work, pretty much.
They told me to go on disability. I'd worked my whole life. I couldn't see sitting at home and hurting and claiming a check once a month, or I could go to work, hurt anyway, and get a check weekly like I was used to living, And but they try to starve you in order to get you to accept the settlement, make your checks late, make you have to go through shit to get your check, and they do a lot of lying, saying that you needed to do this or that and you didn't. It's just, you can never get a hold of anybody. Of course, when you hire an attorney, you're not their only client, so things are really slow. And like I say, they starve you to the point to where you're not being able to pay your bills, you're facing losing your home, and they know this and they use it to their advantage. You don't want to lose what you already have, know. If you work, I got a family to take care of.
So the settlement was like, that seems relatively low for like what happened.
Yeah. They done their job. I'll say that. I mean, I was paralyzed. They told me I wouldn't probably ever walk because of that. I had a lot of paralysis going on. And like 9 months, 10 months later, I was getting my feeling back. And
did they cover medical bills?
Yeah. When I started getting my feeling back in my legs and that, I just started really working, doing a lot of the therapy and so on. And from like 6 to 7 months after I started getting my feeling back, I was up walking and running again. And I decided I wanted to go back to work. So I went back to work through the hall instead of going on disability. And I worked, I think it was 7 or 8 months. And I was on a fiber job, blowing fiber. And they had to set it. They make a pit in the ground and they put up shoring to keep the soil from caving in on you, and then you set your machine down in there and blow fiber. Well, they're setting these shoring in there. Man's got to be down in there, and I was the guy down in the hole. And the bucket, the operator was a new operator on the backhoe, and anyway, the backhoe bucket, the hydraulics were sloppy, and he hit me on top of the head with a piece of shoring. And if I hadn't had my hard hat on, it would have killed me anyway. He hit me on top of the head and broke 3 vertebrae in my neck, my upper back, C6, 7, 8, and on into my neck and your cervical. And it basically killed me right there. I couldn't breathe on my own. The guys there, they done CPR on me for every bit of 45 minutes before help, got there, and they instantly put me on put a tube in me and nebulized, and I was breathing on a machine. I just had my injuries. I've been lucky that they weren't completely, didn't cause complete paralysis, permanently. Of course, they try to get you off the machine, the breathing machine, as quick as they possibly can, because you get to where your body just to where it has to have it, you lose the ability to breathe on your own. And it's quite a struggle. I mean, I really went through it.
So was there a whole nother case opened with that?
Yeah, I got a $102,000 settlement from that, and that was it.
Oh, man.
Yeah, all because I wanted to work, you know?
Yeah,
That's pretty sad.
crazy.
It's just like, had I been somebody after the money like that, I sure the hell wouldn't chose the things that happened to me to happen to me if I was just out to get the money, you know? I've had to work for everything I've ever got, and I don't know any other way, you know? You lose it doesn't matter if you get hurt out there or not, people look down at you, you know, no, you're just trying to get money or this or that. People are just ignorant sometimes. I found myself having to dumb myself down around people like that, because it's just like there's no understanding or reasoning in the things that they do and say. You know, it's just like, man, this guy got hurt, you know?
Yeah.
It's just like
People
doing the right thing.
People are catching something like that and they get some money out of it. Everyone's like fucking, I don't know, jealous or something. Or
I don't get it. I'll tell you what, they ain't got nothing to be jealous about, because I'd trade anything in the world to get my health back, and they stick that money in their derriere.
So I'm assuming after the second injury, you were just out of work.
Yeah, I was done. In fact, my same doctor that done my low back surgery is the same one that done my neck. Dr. George Shedinger in St. Louis, one of the finest doctors there was in the country. Actually, if you went to, what is that in Chicago, Mayo Clinic?
Oh, Mayo, yeah.
And they knew that you had, and they would have laughed at you for coming there instead of going to him. He's designed the appliances that's in my body.
Oh, wow.
And, you know, he's wrote several books. So I had the best medical care that a person could have, and that's probably why
recovered as much as you did.
He's the reason I recovered as much as I did. I know that for a fact. He told me he had the best bedside manner of any doctor I've ever seen. Most doctors, you never see him. You never talk to him. And this guy was sitting on the foot of my bed at 4 o'clock in the morning, every single morning from the day I had my surgery.
Damn.
Until I was released. Even the day I was released, wanting to pound and ground into my head the reason that he needed me to do this and that. And, you know, he wanted to give you the best chance that you could possibly have for recovery. And he'd done what he could do. He wanted to make sure I was doing my job, you know.
Yeah.
And I had a full understanding of it. And but he pat me on the leg at 4 o'clock in the morning, Don, and it was always we got to have a talk.
Yeah.
You know, he told me, he said, listen, he said, you're going to be pissed off. He said, because I was like, again, I was ready. I wanted to go to work. I was like, when can I go back to work? You know, and he's like, I'm about to piss you off. And then he stood up off the foot of my bed. I said, what are you doing? He said, well, I don't want to get kicked. He said, you ever been kicked by a Missouri mule? I said, not to date. I haven't, no. He said, well, neither have I, and I'm not going to start today. And he's like, and I laughed, and I laughed my ass off. And I said, well, what's that? I know I had a sinking feeling, I had a sick feeling in my stomach. And he's like, you're not going back to work. He said, I have, basically, he blackballed me with the Hall and Social Security disability. I never even had to file myself. They done it for me. And I had my disability in 4 months, and I never had to go to no arbitration. I was just basically flat approved.
Yeah.
I was that bad. And the only thing that they offer is like your annuity plan that while you're working.
Yeah.
And the percentages are different to what you're paid in your retirement. If you're on the power side, the journeyman lineman, and working that actual job, well, then the company you're contracted out to is the one that's paying in your retirement. And it's like telecommunications with 4%, power side way, way higher than that. I don't even know what they're at anymore, but it's really substantially more.
I feel like you said one time around like 2005 or so.
Yeah, roughly somewhere there. My dates are really confused. I had a lot of pain medication, a lot. And it has really distorted my thinking on my times. I don't remember certain dates. You get that narrow look when you're on the pain medication. It just like basically becomes more of your life than you could ever imagine. I mean, I was put on so much medication that my doctor needs his ass kicked because I wasn't one for taking medication anyway. I never understood how it worked. I was never told how it worked.
Well, that's back when,
when I first got hurt.
Yeah, and that's
I
when
never
they were
stopped
giving oxycontin away. Like
I
crazy.
never stopped taking pain medication, even my whole, at all from the first time I got hurt. The first doctor, the pain was so bad that, there wasn't a day go by. I'm a pretty religious person, as far as my belief in Christianity and God and stuff, but there wasn't a day go by that I didn't pray, and I thank God for what He gave me, but I didn't ask for any more, I'm just like, if you want to end it today, I could be okay with it.
that's the end of that interview. Now, there were a couple parts that got left out right at the end there. This was like me getting used to using this recorder for the first time. It like just shuts off after like 20 minutes. There's a couple minutes that got cut out, and pretty much what he talked about was just the struggle of becoming dependent on his pain medication, his new life of being kind of sedentary after being used to like a life working all the time, being dedicated to work. He also spoke of a moment in his backyard when he was contemplating killing himself. He had the gun out, then he heard his daughter call his name from the house, and it stopped him. This is an important moment because it's not the first time suicide will come up. I think it really just shows how desperate he has been to escape his addiction. You know, for people who don't understand addiction maybe and think that it is a personal choice, I think the level of desperation that it has brought him to really shows that it's not that simple. And then this next interview will begin with us talking about his housing situation. After he got on disability, it changed as he started to take out loans against his homes. Essentially started a process of selling and downgrading to pay off those loans also. His disability just wasn't really enough to provide for his family and everything. And the settlements he spoke of in this last interview, they really don't last long when you consider the context and the lawyer's fees. I know like $100,000 sounds like a lot, but it really isn't when you have a whole family and when you are crippled, like cannot work. It's a pittance for someone who's dedicated his life to a company just to be discarded and replaced. So yeah, with that we'll get into the second interview here. Selling that house.
Yeah, that's the house in Whitehall that I took on trade from my mom. I ended up having to sell my mom and my stepdad the house in order to have the money for the note I'd taken on it. But like I said, I'd done it 3 or 4 times through the years to keep the place, and because what I was getting on disability, with me being the only income in the house, I was taking care of my 3 daughters, their kids, and their boyfriends. And it's, you live out in the country. Your bills your electric's about double what Ameren is, and you heat with propane. Propane, if you don't have a contract, is just like went up to like $3 and something, almost $4 a gallon on propane. So minimum you can get is 250 gallons. So yeah, sorry they won't come. But yeah, and at that time I was still struggling with the pill addiction. I hadn't done any heroin yet. I was still dabbling with the pills, for pain.
Did you lose your medications, or did it just become not enough?
Honestly, both. I was getting the word. Yeah. That's a lot of medication to be on. It stopped being about the pain, and it wasn't that any longer. It was whether I wanted to take it or not, my body had to have it. And people don't understand that. They think addicts, just a damned addict, and they take it and do it because they want to, but that's not true. I no longer had any say in the matter. It was just straight full-blown addiction, and it cost me everything. My family, my kids, my grandkids, my mom. I haven't talked to my mom probably in almost 2 years, and me and her was always tight, really tight. I could talk to her and tell her anything. It didn't matter what. But it's not really her. It's just the guy she's with. He's a no-nonsense guy, and I get it. He's been with my mom for over 30 years now, and. He just don't understand, and he just thinks that you're just being done because I choose to do it, and he don't get it. But they all want me to quit, but I've never had one of them ask me, what is it going to take? What do you need to get you out of this addiction and keep you away from it? Yeah, it's pretty simple, I don't want to just sit in a chair and sit in an apartment and wait for a paycheck to come once a month and with no automobile and just sit there, and it's no quality of life, I want to be able to go to work still. And there's still jobs that I can do, and anything to keep me out of the house. I've always been a person. I never sat in the house, and I don't to this day. Even this chair, I don't let this chair stop me from going. I still go. And it doesn't matter what the weather is. I'd sure like to get me an automobile and I don't need nothing new. I don't need nothing fancy. Just $800 vehicle. Maybe need a little work, and I can put some money into it and make it a decent vehicle. That way, I can get a job, and I don't have to sit and wait for somebody to come 3 days later when I needed groceries today. I've been through all that with my sister and them. Stick me out in the country in an apartment building out like out by Grafton, and it's just like.
Well, it's isolation too, right?
Yeah. I mean, you isolate myself enough, When you're an addict, you do that,
Yeah.
And they don't get it,
What was your last housing situation before, like, the very first time you became homeless?
I took the trade on the home, and I can barely afford to pay bills. Same situation, had all my kids still there, all of age, with their children I was taking care of, and financially just drug me under. I mean, it did. It's just my wife at the time wouldn't keep a job, and she spent a lot of nonsense thing. Just to be, she'd buy something just because she had the money in her pocket to buy it, not thinking about anything else. So I had to refinance that home, and I finally found a buyer for it and took care of the note on it, and took $25,000, $30,000, and told her, I said, I want to move to Colorado. I had an aunt out there, my aunt lived there, and my cousins. Maybe that's probably when I started my heroin use, a little bit before that. And
before you moved to Colorado?
Yeah. I had actually had some, before we moved from the country into town, about a month before, I had my medication stolen. I just got everything filled, and I'll never forget it. I come back in, it was in my truck, and I locked the windows in this older truck that still had the wing on it in the door. Yeah. And I come in and I noticed it was open, which I never ever even opened the damn things, and I thought it was weird, both sides. And the passenger side door was open. I locked it when I left. I guess I didn't have one of the locks shut on the window, on the wing, and they reached through and grabbed the door handle and popped the lock and got in there and took my whole bag of medicine, my daughter and her boyfriend. And
Jesus, man.
3 days, I called my doctor, wouldn't do anything. I had to make a police report. And I did all that, and they was asking me if I had any idea, which I didn't. He had took it. Well, that's when I found out that her boyfriend was a drug addict, and he had got my daughter on the shit too, and she was just as bad as him. And that all happened. I mean, a lot of things. My script come missing, they wouldn't fill it. About my second, third day of being sick, everybody says, "Oh, it'll go away in 3 days." Bullshit. I mean, I'm just taking enough medication, and I had just.
The doctors were telling you that?
Had a particular friend tell me, because I was taking the pills and I wasn't getting nothing from him, nothing. And he told me, he said, "I know you don't want to hear it, you don't like to hear this," he said, "but that's an opiate, and it's no different from heroin." He said, "If you let me take a needle and cook it up and bring it up, I'll shoot you up." He goes, "The pills will work better." Well, after listening to this for a day, I finally gave in and let him do it, and he was right. It hit me quick and hard, and he took my sick off and stopped my pain. So did you still have like
a few pills left for him to do that with?
Yeah, and actually I went and bought them.
Okay.
Needed I had, but 3 days after that, 4 days, out of the pills and everything again, here I go right back through the same shit. He calls me and wants to know I haven't called him. I told him I've been fucking sick. He said, "Well, yeah, your wife told me," he said, "I called my nephew in Jerseyville, and he said he could help you out if you want to come down here." Well, by that time, I was just basically sitting around in undies because, the drill, the diarrhea, the puking, and I was just sick. So I had to get dressed. We went to Jerseyville, and all the way down there, I was asking him, I said, "What?" I was assuming it was pills. I said, "Did you ask him, with a milligram and, all this and what it was?" And yeah, it's 80 milligram oxycontin. I was like, cool. Get down there, and his wife's there, and he's telling us not to say anything about it. And she leaves, and he comes in there bringing the needle. Now, I'd only done this once or twice,
Yeah.
And I'm like, no way. I'm not doing it. He shoot me up with nothing. I said, "What is it anyway?" He said, "It's heroin." And I looked at my buddy Dave, and I was like, "Heroin?" I said, "I told you I wanted fucking pills." And to me, it didn't even dawn on me. Honestly, I thought heroin was something in the past, like you seen in the 70s in the movies and shit.
Oh, yeah.
I never realized it was still even something that was around,
Yeah.
And He's like, he said, I'm telling you, he said, you need to try this. I was horrible. I literally, in 24 miles, I'm not kidding you, I shit my pants like 4 times.
Yeah.
I was that sick, horrible.
I couldn't even,
puking on
when
myself.
I was sick, dude, I couldn't even move when I was sick. I wouldn't have even I've been sick before where I just can't fucking move or anything. It's the worst feeling ever.
Terrible. Yeah, it was horrible.
Yeah.
But I said, heroin. I said, nah. I said, I'm not putting this shit in me. I said, I don't know how much you use anyway, if I even wanted to, and how to even go about doing it. And I'm not spending no more money on none of this shit. At that point, I was ready to die. I welcomed it. But he said, listen, man, he said, you think them pills you did helped like this? He said, I'm telling you, he said, this is going to take your pain completely away, your sickness, your diarrhea, your vomiting, all that. He said, in minutes. And honestly, I don't know why I did it. I guess maybe I just wanted to see.
Man, if it's going to take away the sickness.
Yeah, but I was really like I'd been taking for so much money, big bills and stuff. But talked me into it. He said everything's good. He said I said, man, I don't want to do it. That needle thing,
Yeah.
And finally talked me into doing it. I did it. Man, he was right. I was like, oh my God! For the first time in I don't know how many years, excuse me, my pain was completely gone. I mean, I've only been averaging the whole time. I've only averaged maybe 2 hours sleep of a night, and that wasn't like restful sleep. 95% of the time, I would fall asleep sitting up in the chair and wake up that way. When I wake up, I got to get up and go. Yeah, that's what bothers me the most. It's just something that doesn't walk, talk, or breathe, have a soul, and it can take that much control over you, and just blows me away.
Well, yeah,
so
the
small.
whole thing gets you in a mode where you're just living from moment to moment.
Yeah.
And all you have to do is get through the next fucking moment, and there's only one way to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, you were probably at first just thinking, like, if I could just get through the months to get my medication back.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. Exactly how it went down. Exactly.
So, did you get wrapped up in addiction and just not make it to Colorado, or?
No, we actually, I'd made up my mind. I was tired of everything, the drugs, the heroin. I was sick of it, just sick of it. And at that point in time, I'd made up my mind that I was going to go to Colorado and I was going to go cold turkey. It's just something told me I knew I was going to die. And I basically went out there to do it. And but I moved my family out there with my aunt and around my aunt and them, and I knew that she would help take care of my wife and my kids and stuff. And of course they're all of age, but she's a pretty strong woman. I knew that she would make sure that everything was okay with them. Because me and my aunt, we got like a really, really special relationship. She just always telling me all the time, God, when you was a baby and your mom moved away with you, she said all I did my whole summer was cry, And I mean, my aunt's always been a huge part of my life. So that's basically why I moved out there. But I got out there and got a place rented, sold the house. Get out there, and I took enough dope with me, bought enough dope to sink a battleship, and I went through it pretty quick, like about $5,000 worth of heroin. Yeah, I went through it in no time, went through the money in no time. It seems like every dollar I've ever got on notes or loans and stuff has just been for the drugs, and it all went to drugs. Hundreds of thousands of dollars it went to drugs, hundreds of thousands.
Where'd you go when you went out to Colorado?
I went to Loveland, Colorado. It's right in the foothills of Estes Park. My cousins and all them out there was like, you need to come out here and get some of this medical weed and help you with pain and and so on. And I understand that what they were trying to do. I wanted away from all the drugs and pain medication and all that. I was so sick of it. I just didn't wake up one day and say, hey, today I think I'm going to be a drug addict. So I packed a lot of guilt, a lot. And man, I'm not kidding you. I'm not a normal person by no means. When I work, it becomes the main focus of my life, and sometimes forget my family in the process. And it's just something I've done my whole life. I work like a dog, but I wanted that back, but I knew I wasn't gonna have it. And after I was out there for like, I don't know, a month maybe, the drugs were gone and broke, and I finally found a guy that had some dope, got kind of hooked in with him, and that's when it all began right there, man. I went hell bent. I figured I'll either kill myself overdosing or, that's going to be it. Well, didn't have nothing for days, and I guess I started going through into DTs, and it was hallucinating. I'd taken so many pills, basically trying to take enough shit to just go to sleep, and that'd be it. And I did. I did that, and just that. I took, I don't know how many Seroquel, 300 milligrams Seroquel, and uppers, downers, it was crazy. My ex-wife told me I was going in the closet, trying to get out of the house. I would go in the closet, and then I'd end up laying down in the closet and just started talking out of my head. I guess she ended up calling the police because I was like just crazy. And she said it was so bad that when the police come with the ambulance, the cop was asking me my name and so on, and just all kinds of stupid questions, and asked me who the president was and what my name was, and I was like, what time of the month what month I thought it was. And I told him, I guess I was a complete smartass to him. From what I understand her saying, I said, and I said, what are you doing, writing a book? It's your story. And it was horrible. They finally talked me into going to the hospital, and I don't remember any of it. I don't remember any of it, but I guess it took so much medicine, I got the job done. I ended up slipping into a coma, and then when I started coming out, I'd done so much damage to my heart. My heart rate was like crazy, and they basically had to put me back in a coma to help slow my heart rate down, and put me on a ventilator. I couldn't stop breathing, and then I basically started dying. And as they told my wife, they said, come out and told her, he said, is he from here, or what? She's like, no. Well, where's his family? She said, well, his aunt lives here, and his mom and them are in Illinois. And he said, well, you better call them and tell them to get here as fast as they can. I guess my heart rate at that point was like, they couldn't get it to slow down. It was over 160 beats a minute. Yeah, and he totally said he's dying. He said he's gonna stroke out. His heart's gonna quit. He can't take that. And he said, if his family wants to see him, they better get here within hours because he's not going to be here by morning. Well, she had to call my mom and tell my mom this shit, and my mom freaked. Her and my sisters all come out and out there, and I remember, I don't know, I guess, honestly, I guess I died because I can remember hearing them talking, and I remember following them outside.
Oh shit! Like having an out-of-body experience. Yeah, and it was like, and I know I was above them, looking down on them. Fuck.
And I remember the shit they were talking about, and I think that's when they had first come in and seen me. My mom come in and seen all that shit on me, and oh my God, she flipped. Damn, you got a smoke on you? Honey, can you get a goddamn smoke, please? I don't think they even have a lighter. I left all that shit in the truck. I got a lighter, but I know it doesn't work. No, but my mom first seen me and with that shit all hooked up to me on a ventilator and hose, everything, tubes coming out of me. And
yeah.
Now, keep in mind, my mom hadn't seen me either for, actually, to be honest with you, I didn't even go see any of my family. I just loaded 2 U-Hauls and loaded my shit, and they didn't even know I'd sold the house I got from. I just sold it, packed up my family, and left.
Yeah.
Didn't even go by and see my mom before I left. But, it's been like, she coming there and seeing that. I remember looking, and it was just so weird to me, looking down on them. But before they went outside, my sister done something to me.
can take a break if you want. Yeah. All right. And that brings us to the end of our second interview. As you can tell, he was having some difficulty at the end there, which is very understandable. When he did regain his composure and begin talking again, we were walking at that point, and I just didn't really have the wherewithal to mic him up again. But what he spoke of was a sound his mother made when she saw him hooked up to the machines. Now, I also understand some people might struggle with the out-of-body experience, with the reality of that, but for that, anyone interested, I'll point you towards the Virginia Institute of Medicine and their Department of Perceptual Studies, where they study near-death experiences. And the reality is that people are able to recall exact conversations and things that happened in other rooms when they have these out-of-body experiences. This is like a real thing that's been recorded, and it's being studied. So it might seem like I'm just like, oh wow, okay, and then continue going, just because I have no trouble believing him when he talks about that. That's kind of where I'm coming from with all that. Kind of wanted to say something about that. So what he talked about was the sound his mother made, and that he had only heard it one more time, and that was when he was a child. And as a kid, he would sleep in his mother's bed because his father was abusive, and I think he was like a trucker, and he would come home and he would just like attack his mom. He slept with her in a child's attempt to defend her from potential abuse and attacks. He was 8, and one morning he woke up and his baby brother's crib was in there, and he went to check on his baby brother, and he just immediately could tell that his brother was unresponsive and was dead, essentially. So, instead of saying anything outright, he climbed back into the bed and then moved around enough to wake up his mom, knowing that she would go check on his brother. And the sound she made can only be described as the sound a mother makes when she loses a child, which I can't imagine. This all provides more context for when he talks about his PTSD later on in this next interview, talking about why he can't stay in homeless shelters. It's from this childhood and waking up to attacks from a grown man. He was having this out-of-body experience, and he heard his mom when she came in and saw him on the ventilator and all of this stuff. She made the similar sound, which is why he was talking about that. Alright, we're gonna jump back into the third and final interview here, and with this one, we kind of start off right where we left off. So we're back in the hospital, and yeah. Last time we were talking, you were in the hospital in Colorado.
Yeah.
After kind of a suicide attempt, taking a bunch of Seroquel and other kind of things.
Yeah. I thought I just got tired of it. I got tired of fighting it, and just decided the best way I could to get it over with. Kids, whole family would be better off, not having to deal with me and my addiction anymore. It takes long for me to realize how bad I'd fucked up to begin with. Seeing what I did, what that done to my mom, I don't know. I think that was the way of God intervening and let me see, what I'd really done, what that done to my family. Pretty wild experience, because I told my mom and then my sister about I seen Mom break down and just fall to the ground and cry, and it kills me. I can't hardly talk about it or think about it. I always said that anytime they try to talk to me and tell me anything about me and my addiction and how it's affecting mine, I would tell them every time, ain't nobody gonna pay for this but me. And so I came in this world alone. I'll leave it on my own by myself. What I do, I'm going to pay for it. Nobody else is going to pay for it, but that's not true. An addict's way as a cop-out to get them off your back and shut them up, because nobody wants to hear that, and especially an addict. It does affect the people around you, and the people, especially the people who love you and care about you. They don't want to see you like that. Hard saying. I made it out of that, made it okay, and we stayed in Colorado for, I don't know, maybe 6 months, 8 months after that. My wife at the time, her mom, something happened to her. She fell, had a bad fall, and she wanted to come back home and said she was her health was really bad. We come to find out the drugstore had gave her name was Amelia Bridgewater, and they gave her an Ida Bridgewater's medication. It thinned her blood so bad, and she just passed out, and fell and hit her head on the doorway and about bled to death.
So did you guys go back to Illinois with that?
Yeah, Gina, she was tired of Colorado and missing her family and ready to go back. I didn't want to, but she wasn't happy there. I didn't want her there, so we just moved back. And that was the start of my downfall again. It just seemed like the addiction kept taking over, winning every corner I turned. No matter how bad I wanted to be clean, it just ended up coming right back. That saying that people, places, and things that you need to change, and that is so true. We came back, and it's just like, you live in a small community like that, it's hard not to be around them people. Really hard.
Yeah, especially if you have nowhere else to go.
Yeah, you'd have to be a damn hermit or somebody place you under house arrest to keep you from being around them, and then they still show up. Found friends that I had that didn't do anything were doing it now, doing the eyes.
Oh, really?
Opiates, yeah. For the longest time they'd been doing it and they never knew. By the time I did find out, they were so deep in their addiction by then that they were in the same damn boat as me. That's for sure. One thing is the drugs, they're not, they don't care who they take. They'll take anyone of any race, age, whatever. I think my family thinks that I just woke up one day and sat there after my coffee and my cigarette talking, what am I going to do today? I think I'm going to become a drug addict today, heroin addict.
They say it's a progressive disease.
Yeah, that is exceptionally really super true, because like every time I've left and got clean, it just seemed like more shit happened. It seemed like the harder I tried, more shit happened. Yeah. It'd take me right back.
So you had some times where you were like trying to stay away.
Oh yeah, yeah. Really, I've really tried, and it's just like when you repeatedly have someone in your family saying, "Oh, he's high," it's just like, man.
You feel like you're not doing it for anything anyways.
Yeah.
People already think you're using it.
Yeah. So it's like, if I'm going to be accused of it, I'm going to fuck it. I'm going to do it. And even though I knew how miserable I was going to be on it seemed like I was more miserable not being on it. At least I had some sort of release, some kind of just where I could get away. It was so overwhelming, trying to stay clean. And
so when you guys came back from Colorado, where were you living?
Patterson.
Were you living with your family?
Yeah, and my youngest daughter, Ashley and Keith. We stayed with them for, about a month, and moved to Murrayville, in an apartment there.
Like, how soon after that were you outside, I guess, like homeless?
Gina and I got divorced in 2014. And see, after I come home, I moved to Murrayville there. I wasn't there very long, and I had a knock on the door one day and opened it, and there was a Morgan County Sheriff's Department there, and they had a warrant for my arrest for Greene County on delivery of a controlled substance. I come to find out, I got my motion discovery, it was my nephew that had got me. I ended up taking a 3-year prison term on it. And that was one of them deals where he just shysty little fucker. He'd been dealing weed out of my mom's trailer in Whitehall, and I got wind of it through a cop that I'd bought the house from in Patterson that I sold to my mom then, that he was about to get busted, and he didn't want my mom to lose her trailer. And so he told me about it. Well, first I went to Evan and told him, better stop, and you're going to get busted. I guess he thought I went to the police and told him he's fucking out of his mind, he's an idiot. So I thought he would stop at that, and he didn't. So I told my mom what was going on, and I don't know whether he ended up getting busted, and I didn't know about it, and he decided to work it off for him. At first is what I thought. Come to find out, he didn't been in trouble at all. He went to them and asked to do it. Told him he could get somebody.
So they set him up to buy something from you?
Yep, the thing was that he hadn't been in any trouble of any kind, so...
Were they just kind of threatening him with the trouble at that point?
No, he actually just went to him. I guess they had contacted him over something else and, warm up to him and get, make money. And then he told that he did it because he didn't think I liked him. Just anything other than what it was, he was just a little shithead. So... I find out about this, and basically I get called a liar by my mom and my sister. Evan wouldn't do nothing like that. I said, well, his name's on the fucking papers down there, for God's sakes, I know what my nephew's name is.
Yeah.
And, so I took 3 years on that bit, but the thing was, the little bastard, I had been getting weed at a place from a lady in Eldred, and getting it really super cheap. My nephew knew it. and wanted some. So I told him, I said, well, he asked me if I get him some. I'm like, yeah. He said, but here's the thing. He said, I got this guy. He said, he's a fiend and he spends a lot of money. He said, I'm not going to buy him from me for that because he's so young. He said, he's an older guy. He's going to bully me on the price. He said, but I want $10 a piece out of him. And I was like, there's no way you're going to get $10. The thing was, he was bringing me the Valium and wanted me to act like that we was getting him an elder and not let the guy know that we was actually getting a ride from him to go get weed. And coming back, I would hand him the Valiums that Evan had brought me already. That's what was kind of strange, is he'd bring me the Valiums an hour or so before the dude would show up to pick him up. It's just like, so I'd hang on to the weed. When the dude, I'd get back in the vehicle, I'd hand Evan the pills, and but before I get out, the guy would give me the money to get the Valium. I bought 7 Valiums at $10 a piece. Yeah, that right there should have told me something, but he said Jonesing real bad, he'll pay it, Yeah, but he got me.
So this got you a 3-year bid, or that did you have to serve?
A year and a half.
A year and a half, yeah. Are you in a wheelchair this whole time too?
No.
Okay.
I'm walking with a cane. I was pretty messed up, really bad, but.
Yeah, I didn't realize that prison happened to you. So that's what led to the homelessness then?
Yeah. Yeah, it was pretty bad. So basically, my daughter lived in Jacksonville on Duncan Street, actually right across from my house where I kind of grew up in when I lived up there as a kid. And I moved in with her for about a month and a half. Yeah, man, it just blew me away when I found out that he handed me that paper that day in court. First thing he said, what's you know Aaron Evans? And I was like, yeah, why?
So they told you then that he was a CI?
Yeah.
So you lived with her for a month or
so? Yeah. She moved to Waverly to help take care of Adam's mom because she had like open heart surgery or something. And so at that point in time, 2014 is when I became homeless. I had the money to rent a place every month. I had it. Drugs took all my money. My addiction was very, 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 very bad. I did a lot of stuff that should have killed anybody normal.
Did it kind of start with you like couch surfing a little bit, like staying just where you could?
Yeah.
And then eventually you just didn't have anywhere to stay?
Yeah. And several times. It's like, I'd get straightened up and I'd get an apartment. And I rented an apartment with somebody for 2 or 3 months, and then so I've pretty much been homeless. My girlfriend at the time I met Colleen, she was single at the time. I became single. We got together and stayed with her and her mom's, but I was still homeless. The first part, ended up going to St. Louis, living in a bando down there. Now this time my daughter and her addiction and one thing or another with the law, time after time after time. It's just like I couldn't stay out of jail. And then I couldn't get to the court, living out of town. And
so you ended up going back to jail a couple times?
Yeah, went back to jail a couple times, and then there was like
what were they arresting you for?
Possessions, and it was just like nonsense stuff. There's no way anybody should ever get caught with drugs on them.
This was when you were like sleeping outside and shit, is when they would arrest you for possession and shit?
Yeah, it just seemed like every time they see me, they stop me. Every single time.
That seems illegal.
Yeah, it was. In Greene County, they tend to do stuff, however they make up the law that day to fit their need is how they do it. And, they got it in for me down there. They just, I got warrants now, to be honest with you. But, they're threatening to try me without me being present. And I told them I'd go ahead because I'm not, they're not going to see the day where they take me alive and I'll go by and not go back to prison. I'll go to the grave before I go to prison.
Is that what kind of took you to Springfield, was just getting away from them?
Yeah, they lied, flat out lied. I never had any drugs on me at all, and no needles or nothing. The place where they stopped me at, because my girlfriend and I was into it, she called them and told them I had her link card and was spending it. Well, she gave me her link card to sell to a friend of mine, and we were late getting back, and that pissed her off, so she called them and told them I had her link card. And come up there, they hollered for me to come out, so I came out. Fuck, it was like, they come up there, And I come out of the woods, and he asked me what I had on me, and I told him I don't have anything on me. No, I had a point on me, but it hadn't been used. It didn't have anything on it or in it. They went in the timber where I came out at, and back in there, everybody goes there to shoot up. Everybody. You can't spit back there without spitting on a rig. And they went in there, and they picked up a rig and some bag, I think. They said they found a bag, and supposedly, I can't remember if they tested the rig or the bag, one or the other, and said it tested positive for methamphetamine. Yeah, and it was, they don't know how they found any dope in anything. That the amount was so minute that it just fell under the law, 13 grams or less. And so I told him, I said, shit is not mine. Had it been heroin, you would have had your guy. But meth, no. At the time, I never used meth.
Yeah.
I couldn't stand it. I'm not an up guy. I'm a downer, occasional
that's
speedball.
That's the crazy thing, because they could have just tested you.
Yeah, right. That's what I told him. I said, take and give me a drug test. Well, that doesn't mean you wouldn't have to. I said, it means it wouldn't be my fucking rig. And I told him, I said, check the blood type, whatever. I'll go do blood work or whatever. I'll pay for it, use my insurance. This was just a little over a year ago.
So did you just recently start living in Springfield?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you know how many cases you had with the Jacksonville Police Department?
Yeah, it was probably shit. I really don't recall. I know it was
Several. I mean, enough that you can't remember.
Oh yeah, exactly. It's like 4, 5, 6, something like that. But the thing is, only one of them, I can't say truthfully that only one time was it ever mine. And that's the only time I didn't get charged with it. They dumped it, threw it out, and it blows me away. So, I mean, they stopped me and asked me, you got anything on you? I mean, no, I don't have. And I mean, they fought bogus shit on me. Yes, on this last deal, copy put down resisting arrest. And my knees are messed. I can't even hardly walk. Resisting? Man, I couldn't stand on my leg. I was starting to fall. And that's trying to catch myself is resisting.
So have you been in the wheelchair recently with the knee infection and shit? Is that...
Yeah, that happened been almost 7 months now. I just thought something was wrong with the bottom of my foot, but it went from my bottom of my foot, but it just kind of went from my foot, got to feeling better, and then it was my knee immediately. And it's just like over a couple years, my knee has just progressively gotten worse and worse and worse. And I finally got down to where I could not get up and walk at all. It was just like I was down, and that was it. Just seems like I went to bed one night, I was still limping and stuff, but I was getting around, could ride a bike or whatever. It went from that to I could not get out of friggin' bed and stand on my legs to go piss. I told Colleen, I said, I'll tell you, I got a bad feeling about this. I said, this is not going to be good. This doctor really fucked me up, man, just really fucked me up.
And this is the doctor who used the same needle on you, on your knee?
Yeah.
Touch. What do you say? He touched the touch screen with his glove, same glove, and then picked it back up and then tried again.
Yeah, and then went to the computer in there, touching the tablet and that, looking at that stuff. I mean, handling everything with their gloves. It's supposed to be sterile and to be in a sterile environment, and you're a doctor. You do this shit every single friggin' day sometimes, and how can you not know to change your fucking gloves and wash your hands? I mean, come on. I know his mistake has really fucking cost me. Doctors in general, it fucking cost me. This oxycontin, my God, man, Jesus Christ, that fucking shit cost me my life. I should have never been put on that shit. Never.
Yeah, I think that's one reason why your story is so important, is because it's so many Americans have a similar story where they were hurt, they're working or whatever, they get hurt, they get put on pain medication, specifically oxycontin, and they don't get told anything about it, and it leads to addiction. And it's just like a story you hear over and over and over.
Yeah.
You're homeless, so you know what the stigma is with being homeless and what people think about homeless people.
Yeah, man.
People have these stories and reasons why they are where they are.
I see, man. I passed homeless people before myself and jumped to conclusion or judged too quick, and I was wrong for doing that. Very, very wrong. I just wish that people would stop and take the time to realize that just how fortunate they are to have the things they have, because anything at any time can happen and take everything that they ever had completely away from them, and they could lose their families and anything that puts you out here on the street. Anything could, and nothing's guaranteed here in life like this. Nothing's guaranteed. It could be here today and gone tomorrow, and what are you gonna do?
Yeah, I mean, most of Americans live paycheck to paycheck.
Anyway, yeah.
People don't realize that it's like people look down on homeless people, but it's like you're like one medical emergency away from being homeless.
You bet you. They don't even realize. Yeah, it's true. I couldn't believe it. It's just like I see how people get treated. I had a guy.
It's like you don't stay in shelters or anything, really, do you?
No,
right?
no. I got severe PTSD, and it's like, because of the shit I went through when I was a kid.
Just like
I get extremely violent, and my outbursts are extremely violent. In my sleep, I'm like very, very violent. If I hear anything, anybody touches me in my sleep, or I hear a noise around me, my automatic reflex is to swing.
Yeah.
And until I'm completely I don't stop. I practically beat a guy to death, because you got to tell him everything. Man, I would die before I would tell him something like that, just to be able to sleep inside. I end up hurting somebody that doesn't know. I'd kill myself. I never want to hurt anybody, Like my girlfriend's not going to go to one without me. We've slept in the same bed together for 10 years,
I know. I mean, Illinois sucks in the winter.
Oh, God.
Like, I can't imagine being homeless out here in the winter.
God, I hope I'm not out here. I hope to God we got an apartment by then.
Is it easier to get housing during the winter?
Yeah. They really are. They're doing everything they can.
Do they ever do like hotel vouchers and shit like that?
I don't even know.
Yeah.
I was told that the mission did, but I was also told the mission gave out bus tow, stuff like that. Anything I've ever asked the mission down here for, I've been denied it. Told no. Yeah.
So have you ever been approached by the police department here? They have like homeless outreach officers. Have you ever interacted with that guy?
Yeah.
What was that like? What do they tell you?
I talked to him with Shannon up here at the library. Shannon,
is that like the social worker that he travels, that he goes around with?
Yep. Shannon, she's an officer too. Really good people, and but they help getting shelter and stuff like that. But with my PTSD, they just they can't. They really help a lot of people. They really do.
That's good. That's good to hear.
It's kind of hard for me to bark on the police officers up here. I mean, I know there's good and bad officers, but for the most part, they are some really good officers up here, and, they're just doing their job. I realize that. I understand the pressure they got on them. They're hearing it from their bosses to do whatever to keep the homeless out of the inner city and stuff. They get a call about us, being someplace that they think we should be, and they got to do something about it. I'm not faulting them. I'm faulting their approach, their method of doing this. I mean, there's been homeless people for centuries. Just had nowhere to go and had to sleep outside. But I don't see any help being given and any approach to prevent it. I've seen nothing.
It's not like there's like thousands of homeless people in Spring.
Right.
It's like a few hundred people. It doesn't seem like it'd be that hard to get a more hands-on approach. But yeah, that's why I'm curious about the services here, and just like what you said about the mission is interesting, because I don't think I've heard anything good about it from many people.
No, they talk to people in there like they're dogs. Like they're ignorant. You just badmouth them and talk shit on them. You can't, if they can offend you, but you can't retaliate against them and say anything back to them. If you do, you're kicked out. You're kicked out, yeah. So basically, you take their mouth and their attitude. They've got brand new stuff in there, sleeping bags, oodles. I mean, shelves full of sleeping bags and new stuff, brand new stuff. But you never see anybody being given any of that stuff.
Why?
I don't know. No sleeping bags. They give out those they got lots of raincoats and shit like that in their brand new heavy duty stuff. Racks and racks of warm shit, blankets and stuff. But they don't give it out. All you get is cheap plastic, real so thin a plastic rain suit. They're only giving it out because it was donated to them.
All right, so that is the third interview with Donnie. I've got one short one after this. First, I just wanted to hit on the involvement of law enforcement in his life and how aggressively they pursued this disabled man for nothing more than being an addict. It really shows how much the police can just fuck up your life on a whim. You know, it sucks, but I wasn't really that surprised. Like, when he told me the stories about them just, like, finding shit on the ground to pin on him. Yeah, I think it's just important to show how just the fact of just being outside and living outside just opens you up that much more to law enforcement coming into your life. Because really, when you're homeless and you don't own anything, you're really not allowed to be anywhere. Anyway, so we're gonna jump to a final interview I just did with him. Mostly just wanting to get some final thoughts from him, seeing if he has any housing prospects for the winter. Could you say anything to people who, about your situation, you know, people who don't understand being homeless, what would you say?
I mean, maybe they need to take the time to sit down and actually get informed about how people end up homeless. And, you know, not everybody has been homeless their whole life, you know. We all had brothers and sisters, moms, dads, families, you know.
Yeah.
And things happen in our life that, you know, we got no control over and can't change. And anything the same could happen to them any minute. I just think they need to be a little more open-minded and a little bit more caring and understanding, because we're all human beings. We all came in this world the same way, and we're all going out the same, you know, so we'll all put our pants on one leg at a time, last I knew.
I was just going to ask you how important being out here, like how important community has been for you.
Well, that's really, really so important. Just having somebody else to talk to, you know, it's just, even though you're with somebody here, I've got my fiance here, and I mean, sometimes you still feel alone, and you know, it's just like who you turn to when for any information or any guidance, and you know, trying to get you to take the right steps to better your life, and what channels there is out there available to do that. So that's really, really super important. I mean, it's one of the most important things there is, I believe, is being informed, you know.
Yeah.
To have that contact with other people to be able to do that, yeah, that's definitely a big thing. It's just like it's for one thing, seeing that you're not alone, you know. I mean, it's just like this isn't only you that's, you know, dealing with the situation. And I met some really good people out here that had a lot of hardship fall on them, and not by their own hands. They done everything right, but it just wasn't in the cards for them. And you know, it wears on you really, really bad, mentally, physically, the weather, you know. Yeah,
speaking of the weather, I was going to ask you if you had any plans for the winter, or if you were talking to someone about possibly getting housing for the winter.
There it goes.
It's supposed to be somebody's helping us in through the mission now to call about apartments, and the funding and all that they've taken care of, and just a matter of being accepted, you know, our application being accepted.
What kind of housing would that be?
Just an apartment.
An apartment,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah, but I mean, it's we definitely got to get off the street. For one, I'm in a wheelchair. Snow, she's not going to be able to push me. I'm not going to be able to take myself through the snow and the muck and being wet all the time. And, you know, we're on 58, I'll be 59 in March, and she's right up there with me, so this weather really takes a toll on you. You know, people that's worked their whole lives, you know, you've got injuries and stuff like that, your body's wore out, and it's anybody with any injuries that they're dealing with, this weather just amplifies it, and just weighs on your mind really, really, really hard.
Yeah. Do you need any other shit, like gloves and stuff?
Yeah. I need some sort of warm boots. I mean, just like, because my feet and with my low back hurt like it is, I got a lot of pain associated down my legs and in my feet, so at least a little bit of cold just really, really tears into me.
What's your shoe size?
9.
9? Okay.
Yeah.
The interview we did with the hospital that we cut short that one day.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you if it was okay for me to, like, relate the story you told me, like...
Yeah, absolutely.
I feel like explaining some of that trauma kind of goes hand in hand with addiction and shit.
Yeah, it does. I mean, that's what I'm saying, too. The stress of being out here like this, don't take anybody too smart to figure out that drugs doesn't do anything but make your problem worse. But it also numbs you to the point to where, you know, it's not as on your mind as hard, and it helps with the pain. honestly, everybody takes a break in some sort of way from their troubles or whatever, well, no matter what it be that they do, but mine just happens to be drugs, unfortunately, and had a lot of help in getting there, I know that, but I know it's not helping my situation, but I'm ready to put that behind my life, to the back of my life. I know that I can't have both. The two don't work together. Can't have what you want and have a life that's got any value to it at all, that's worth living with having drugs in it. I know that better than anybody's. And being out here, your quality of life is pretty fucking low. I know this much. Not everybody can do this. I'll tell you now. I thought I'd been through some shit in my life that was tough. Never thought I'd make it through it, and I did, fortunately. But some of the hardest shit I've ever had to deal with and go through. If it wasn't for the drugs, and that's a very fine line between sane and insanity. So if it wasn't for them numbing sort of some of the shit you go through, I'd be babbling, drooling idiot out here.
I think that's pretty much it, man. I appreciate you talking to me.
It's been a pleasure, I'll tell you. I'm glad I met you. And
yeah, me too, man.
You've helped me a lot, quite a bit. I actually see somebody out here that gives a shit, you know?
Yeah.
Gives you something to look forward to, you know?
You've had a lot of really good, very insightful stuff to say about your own situation that I think applies to a lot of other...
Everybody,
so I really appreciate it, man.
No problem, man.
I'll stay in touch with you too to see...
please.
Yeah, to hopefully you get some housing this winter.
Yeah, I hope so, man.
I get back in my car after my last interview with Donnie. While I interviewed him, he was sitting in the doorway of his makeshift tent in his wheelchair, sheltered from the cold wind under a tarp. After I'm done interviewing him, I run back quickly to my car and get in, cranking up the heat. Immediately, I think to myself how the group of people back there don't have that kind of luxury. I reflect on the world we live in, or rather, the different worlds we live in. One world is out here. They're back in that alleyway. They have to find somewhere warm to sleep, and soon it will be cold enough to kill at night. It seems so heartless, almost, going back to my warm room. I've left him with things like a new tent, got things like warm socks and a sleeping pad and tarp for Donnie, but it never feels like enough. Still, it is a seemingly heartless world where there are those outside and there are those inside, an injustice that exists globally and in many different ways. Afterwards, Donnie texts me to thank me for everything. He told me that it gives him hope to know that there's someone out there who has been where he is and that cares about all of us out here. Just that he was simply a thought in someone else's mind, and he thanks me for being the person I am, which means a lot. You know, I've doubted myself over these interactions and interviews over the last few months, worried that I was one more person creating content about homelessness, coming from my world into his world. I don't know. But it does go to show how much just treating someone like a human with dignity, someone who has a story to tell, can do for them. In all honesty, it means even more because after coming home from the interview, I learned that another member of my Narcotics Anonymous home group has died from a heroin overdose, or fentanyl overdose. Someone I just saw last week, who I just talked to Saturday when he called me twice in a row. And I called him back and he wanted to hang out, but I was at work. I couldn't hang out. You know, he was just at the home group meeting last week. He's been reaching out to people asking for help after relapse. And I don't know, it makes me feel like almost hopeless. And at the same time, it makes me feel like it's more important than ever to try to put stories like this out there and just try to create understanding and compassion. I don't know, because people really are dying. You know, the recent Supreme Court decision over the summer, homeless camps are being swept and their inhabitants rounded up across the country. Some people may notice homeless camps disappearing and being grateful of the site being gone without ever wondering where all those people are now, what happened to the community that used to reside there. I could never thank Donnie enough for willing to be so honest with me. I was moved by his insights into his own addiction. Many people in active addiction are reluctant to admit that they are an addict, which is really, it's hard for someone in his situation. Like, addiction is awful. It is a disease, it's a compulsion, and you can have all of the knowledge in the world about it, but it still won't stop you from being an addict. At the same time, it's seemingly fueled by personal choices, and it can be hard to distinguish between what is your addiction and what is you. The stigma is huge because of that, and even more so is the shame and guilt, you know? I've heard homeless people all the time being really hard on themselves, calling themselves junkies, and internalizing all of the stigma that society can throw at them. And the shame and guilt is just as toxic as any actual drug. You end up believing the story that the world tells you about yourself. It seems like we live in an age of acceptance, but on the street, the stigma is alive and well. So, thank you, Donnie, and thank you for listening. I'm going to start creating group chats on my Substack for every episode I create so that people can message in a group format and ask any questions they might have about each episode. So if you haven't, check out my Substack at roaddogs.substack.com for free content and more stories about my own time traveling and my own dealings with addiction and all that. Yeah, happy Thanksgiving, everyone. More episodes soon.